The morning sun peeked through the windows of Pete's diner, casting warm squares of light across the checkered floor. The smell of fresh coffee and sizzling bacon filled the air as Maya moved between tables with the grace of a dancer. Her worn sneakers made soft squeaks against the clean tiles, adding their own little beat to the morning rush symphony. She'd been working at Pete's for 3 years now, and every morning felt like conducting an orchestra. The clink of coffee cups became her percussion, the sizzle of eggs on the grill her strings, and the chatter of regulars her wind section. But none of her customers knew that behind her gentle smile and quick service lay the heart of a real musician. As she poured coffee for the elderly couple in booth 6, they always came in at 7:15 sharp. Maya hummed quietly to herself. The tune was one she'd composed last night, after her shift, when her fingers had finally found their way to her keyboard at home. Music had been her first love, long before she learned to balance 4 plates on one arm or memorize complicated breakfast orders. "Could I get some more cream, sweetie?" called out a voice from table 3. Maya grabbed the cream pitcher, already working its rhythm into her morning song. In her mind, every order became a musical note, every request a new verse. The simple task of delivering cream became a graceful move in her daily dance. The morning rush picked up, and the diner filled with business people clutching their phones, construction workers fresh from their early shifts, and students rushing to grab breakfast before class. Maya glided between them all, her notepad filling with orders while her mind filled with melodies. "Order up," called Ji-Ho from the kitchen, his spatula tapping against the bell. That bell ring. Maya had worked it into so many of her compositions that she'd started calling it her diner note. She collected the plates, each one steaming with perfectly cooked eggs and golden hash browns. Between refilling coffee cups and taking orders, Maya caught fragments of her customers' lives. The young mother teaching her toddler to say please and thank you. The truck driver telling stories about starlit highways. The retired teacher grading papers over her morning tea. Each of their stories wove into her mental symphony, making the music richer, more real. Sometimes, when the rush slowed and the diner settled into its late morning lull, Maya would catch herself moving to the rhythm only she could hear. Her feet would trace little patterns on the floor, her hands conducting invisible orchestras as she wiped down tables or restocked sugar packets. The regulars had noticed something special about her, even if they couldn't quite put their finger on it. Maybe it was the way she remembered their orders perfectly, as if each preference was a note in a familiar song. Or perhaps it was her timing. She always seemed to appear with fresh coffee just when they needed it, like a perfectly placed rest in a musical score. That morning, as Maya cleared away breakfast plates and topped off coffee cups, she added new layers to her mental symphony. The cheerful greeting of a new customer became a bright trumpet call. The gentle conversation of old friends turned into a flowing violin duet. Even the rumble of passing trucks outside found their place in her composition. Little did her customers know that their friendly waitress spent her evenings in front of a keyboard, turning their everyday moments into beautiful melodies. Each night, she captured the day's symphony in her music, preserving those small, precious moments of human connection in songs that no one had heard, at least not yet. Maya tucked her order pad into her apron pocket, straightened her name tag, and smiled as the bell above the door chimed again. Another customer, another story, another note in her ever-growing symphony. This was more than just a job. It was the place where real life and music merged, creating something beautiful in the most unexpected place. The basement of Pete's Diner held more secrets than just extra napkins and spare ketchup bottles. Hidden behind stacks of chairs and old mangas, tucked away in the furthest corner, stood an upright piano that had seen better days. Its dark wood was dusty, and a few of its keys had yellowed with age, but to Maya, it was more precious than gold. She discovered it during her first week at the diner, while looking for extra sugar packets. The sight of it stopped her in her tracks, like finding a treasure chest in the most unexpected place. That old piano was a remnant from the diner's glory days in the 1960s, when live music filled the restaurant every weekend and couples would dance between the tables. Now, during her breaks, Maya would quietly slip down the creaky stairs, carefully closing the door behind her. The basement's dim light came from a single bulb hanging from the ceiling, swaying slightly whenever trucks rumbled past on the street above. But Maya didn't need much light. Her fingers knew their way around piano keys like old friends. She had to play softly, of course. The last thing she wanted was for the music to drift upstairs and give away her secret practice sessions. So she developed a gentle touch, making the piano whisper rather than sing. Sometimes she'd placed her uniform apron across the strings to mute them even further, creating a sound as soft as falling snow. The basement became her sanctuary. While boxes of supplies and old decorations gathered dust around her, Maya would lose herself in the music. She played everything from classical pieces she'd learned as a child to popular songs she'd heard on the radio. But mostly, she played her own compositions, the songs that came to her while serving customers upstairs. There was something magical about that old piano. Maybe it was the way the keys felt under her fingers, worn smooth by countless musicians before her. Or perhaps it was the piano's rich, warm tone that seemed to hold echoes of all the songs it had played over the decades. Even with its slightly out-of-tune notes and sticky keys, it had character, like an old storyteller with many tales to share. Between the lunch and dinner rushes, when the diner grew quiet, Maya would sneak down for quick 5-minute sessions. These stolen moments kept her going through long shifts. She'd play fragments of melodies that had come to her while serving plates of meatloaf or refilling coffee cups, working them out note by note in the basement's cool darkness. One day, while dusting off the piano's wooden surface, Maya found an old photograph tucked behind the music stand. It showed the diner in its heyday, tables pushed to the sides, people dancing, and a suited pianist playing this very same piano. The joy in their faces was clear even in the faded black and white image. Maya carefully put the photo back, feeling like she was now part of that hidden history. She started bringing sheet music from home, building a small collection that she kept hidden in an empty storage box labeled paper napkins. Some days she practiced the same passage over and over, her fingers dancing across the keys until they got it just right. Other times she'd simply improvise, letting the day's experiences flow through her music. The basement piano became more than just an instrument. It was her confidant, her creative outlet, her link to a dream she wasn't ready to give up. Every scratch on its surface, every slightly wobbly key, told a story. And now Maya was adding her own chapter to its long history, one quiet practice session at a time. As weeks turned into months, she began to feel like she was keeping alive some essential part of the diner's soul. In a world of digital music and smartphones, this old piano in a basement was a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful music comes from unexpected places, played by people who create art not for fame or fortune, but simply because they must. It was a quiet Tuesday morning when everything changed. The elderly gentleman in booth 7 was a creature of habit. He arrived precisely at 8:45 a.m. every Tuesday, ordered black coffee and wheat toast, and spent exactly 1 hour reading through papers covered in musical notes. Maya had been serving him for months, quietly noting how his fingers would sometimes tap out rhythms on the table while he read. That particular morning, the usual sounds of the diner were muted by a gentle rain outside. Maya had just finished her quick practice session in the basement, her fingers still tingling with the memory of the keys. She'd been working on a new piece inspired by the rainfall, and in her hurry to get back upstairs, she hadn't quite closed the basement door completely. As she poured coffee for the gentleman, who she knew only as Mr. G from his credit card receipts, she noticed him tilting his head slightly, as if listening for something. The faint notes of the basement piano were drifting up through the gap in the door, carried by the old building's heating system. Maya's heart skipped a beat, but she kept her expression neutral, pretending not to notice. Mr. G looked up from his papers, his eyes twinkling with curiosity. "That's beautiful," he said softly. Sounds like choppin' with a modern twist. Maya fumbled with the coffee pot, unsure how to respond. She hadn't realized the sound would carry so clearly, or that anyone would recognize her interpretation of the classical piece she'd been experimenting with. Instead of exposing her secret, Mr. G simply smiled and returned to his papers. But the next Tuesday, Maya found something unexpected with his usual tip: a piece of sheet music. The handwritten notes on the margin read, "For the basement pianist, thought you might enjoy this one." That simple gesture marked the beginning of their unspoken understanding. Every Tuesday, Mr. G would bring a new piece of music, sometimes classical, sometimes contemporary, sometimes his own compositions. He never mentioned them directly, just left them tucked under his coffee cup with a knowing smile. Maya began to notice subtle changes in his visits. He would time his coffee refills to coincide with her returns from the basement, nodding appreciatively, which he hummed quietly while pouring. Sometimes he would leave technical notes about finger positions or tempo suggestions along with the sheet music, each one helping her grow as a musician. Other customers started noticing the special atmosphere around Booth 7 on Tuesday mornings. The way Maya and Mr. G communicated through small gestures and shared glances, the peaceful smile on his face when distant piano notes floated up from below, the growing stack of sheet music that would appear and disappear throughout his visits. One rainy morning, Maya found a different kind of note with her tip. In elegant handwriting it said, "I've been teaching music for 40 years, and few students have brought such life to these old pieces. Don't hide your gift forever." It was signed simply G, with a small treble clef drawn beside it. That note changed something in Maya. While she still kept her playing private, she began to take more risks with her music, incorporating new styles and techniques. The basement piano became not just an escape, but a place of growth and exploration. Mr. G's silent encouragement gave her the confidence to push beyond her comfort zone. Their Tuesday morning ritual continued, a dance of unspoken words and shared music. In a world where everyone seemed too busy to notice the small things, this quiet exchange of art and understanding flourished. Through their silent partnership, the diner became more than just a place of coffee and toast. It became a sanctuary where music and ordinary life intertwined in the most beautiful way. What started as a simple coincidence had grown into something magical, proving that sometimes the most meaningful connections are built not on words, but on the universal language of music. And while Maya still wasn't ready to share her gift with everyone, having just one person who understood made all the difference in the world. The afternoon sun streamed through the diner windows when Maya first noticed a little girl sitting at the counter, legs swinging beneath her as she pushed a plate of fries around with obvious frustration. The child's small fingers moved across the countertop as if playing an invisible instrument, but her movements were jerky and uncertain. Maya recognized those frustrated movements. She'd made them herself years ago when struggling with difficult piano pieces. The girl was Lily, the diner owner's daughter, who had started spending afternoons at the restaurant while her mom worked late at her second job. What caught Maya's attention wasn't just the finger movements, but the sheet music propped against the napkin holder, covered in angry pencil marks. During a quiet moment between customers, Maya approached the counter. "Those fries look lonely," she said, sliding onto the stool next to Lily. The girl looked up, her eyes red-rimmed from holding back tears. "I hate piano," she whispered, as if confessing a terrible secret. "Mom spends so much money on lessons, but I'm no good at it." Maya glanced at the sheet music. It was a simple piece she remembered from her own early days. "You know," she said, picking up a French fry, "I used to think I was no good at it too." Lily's eyes widened with surprise. "You play piano." The afternoon lull had settled over the diner, with just a few regulars nursing their coffee cups. Maya looked around, then lowered her voice conspiratorially. "Want to see something cool?" Lily nodded eagerly, already sliding off her stool. Maya led her to the basement door, flicking on a light switch. As they descended the stairs, She could hear Lily's small gasp when the old piano came into view. "This is where the magic happens," Maya said, clearing away some boxes to make room on the piano bench. She sat down and patted the space next to her. "Watch this." Her fingers found the keys, and she began playing the very piece Lily had been struggling with, but with a twist. She added a gentle swing rhythm, turned the simple melody into something that sounded almost like a lullaby. "That's not how it goes," Lily protested, but she was smiling now. "That's what's so amazing about music," Maya explained. "There's no single right way to play it. Here, let me show you something." She took Lily's hand and helped her find the basic chord positions. "Think of it like telling a story. Every time you tell it, it can be a little different." They spent the next 20 minutes playing with a melody, turning it into a game. Maya showed Lily how to hear the rhythm in everyday sounds. The drip of the coffee maker upstairs, the rumble of passing trucks, the chatter of customers. "Music is everywhere," she explained. "We just have to learn to listen for it." When they finally emerged from the basement, Lily's whole demeanor had changed. Her shoulders were relaxed, and there was a sparkle in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "Can we do this again?" she asked, hopefully. Maya glanced at the clock. Her break had ended 5 minutes ago, but seeing the joy on Lily's face made it worth it. "Same time tomorrow," Maya suggested. "Bring your music, and we'll see what other stories we can tell with it." Lily hugged her impulsively before running back to her homework at the counter. That evening, as Maya wiped down tables after closing, she found a folded piece of paper under Lily's plate. Inside was a crayon drawing of two people sitting at a piano, surrounded by musical notes in every color of the rainbow. At the bottom, in wobbly letters, it said, "Thank you for making music fun again." Maya carefully tucked the drawing into her apron pocket, right next to Mr. G's latest sheet music. Something had shifted that afternoon, not just for Lily, but for Maya too. For the first time, she'd shared her secret world of music with someone who needed it as much as she did. The basement piano was no longer just her sanctuary. It had become a place where magic could be passed on, where frustration could turn into joy, and where music could bridge the gap between generations. The quiet hours between lunch and dinner became something special at Pete's Diner. Regular customers grew used to the sound of muffled piano music drifting up from below, accompanied by occasional bursts of childish laughter. Some even started timing their coffee breaks to coincide with these impromptu concerts, though they never mentioned it directly. Maya had developed a unique way of teaching. Instead of strict scales and rigid practice schedules, she taught Lily to find music in everyday moments. The clink of spoons against coffee cups became their metronome. The sizzle of the grill turned into percussion. Even the stop-and-go rhythm of traffic outside the diner windows became part of their lessons. "Close your eyes," Maya would say, sitting with Lily at the old piano. "What do you hear?" They'd spend a few moments just listening to the world above them. Footsteps on the floorboards, the distant rumble of the milkshake machine, fragments of conversation floating down the stairs. Then they'd try to capture those sounds in music, creating their own little symphonies of diner life. One day, while showing Lily how to play a simple jazz tune, Maya noticed the girl's hands moving more confidently across the keys. Gone was the frustrated child who'd once declared she hated piano. In her place sat a young musician who hummed while she practiced and tapped out rhythms on her schoolbooks. The basement became their secret music studio. Maya hung Lily's colorful drawings on the walls, bringing life to the dim space. They created their own system of musical notes. Hearts for whole notes, stars for quarter notes, little suns for half notes. It might not have been traditional, but it worked. Lily began to see music as something playful rather than intimidating. Their lessons weren't just about piano technique. Maya taught Lily how to listen to the rain and hear a melody in its patterns. They made up songs about the regular customers, the gentle waltz of the elderly couple who always share a slice of pie, the upbeat tune of the morning jogger who ordered green tea, the slow blues of the night shift worker having breakfast at sunset. Word of Lily's progress reached her regular piano teacher, who was amazed by the change. The girl who once struggled with basic scales was now playing with emotion and understanding. When asked about her improvement, Lily would just smile and say she discovered how to hear the music in everything. During slow afternoons, they'd sometimes sneak extra treats from the kitchen, cookies or leftover pie, and have what they called their concert picnics. Lily would practice her pieces while Maya served imaginary audiences, both of them trying not to giggle too loudly. These moments, simple as they were, filled the basement with more joy than any formal concert hall. The other waitresses noticed the change in both of them. Maya smiled more often, humming as she worked, while Lily practically bounced through the diner after their sessions. Even Mr. G, still quietly leaving sheet music every Tuesday, seemed pleased when he heard their muffled duets from his regular booth. One afternoon, during a particularly good lesson, Lily asked a question that made Maya pause. "Why don't you play for everyone? You're so much better than my regular teacher." Maya's fingers tilled on the keys as she considered how to answer. The truth was, sharing music with Lily had begun to change something inside her. The joy of teaching, of passing on her love of music, was slowly overshadowing her fear of performing. That day's lesson ran a little longer than usual. They worked on a duet together, something simple but beautiful. A melody about friendship and shared secrets, about finding courage through helping others. As they played the final notes, Maya realized that teaching Lily hadn't just helped the young girl find her music. It had helped Maya rediscover why she fell in love with playing in the first place. The morning of Pete's Diner's 50th anniversary started with chaos. The place was decorated with gold and white balloons, old photos covered the walls, and every table was reserved for the evening celebration. Everything was perfect except for one tiny detail. The musician who was supposed to perform had just called in sick. "What do you mean you have the flu?" The owner spoke into the phone, pacing behind the counter. "The party starts in 6 hours." Maya could see the worry lines deepen on her boss's face as she hung up. The live music was supposed to be the highlight of the evening, a throwback to the diner's early days when music and food went hand in hand. Regular customers had been talking about this celebration for weeks. Many of them had brought in old photos of the diner from their family albums, snapshots of birthday parties, first dates, and Sunday breakfasts from decades past. Almost every picture showed the old piano that now sat in the basement, back when it had pride of place near the front window. Maya kept serving breakfast as usual, but her mind was racing. She watched Lily sitting at her usual spot, working on her homework while shooting worried glances at her stressed-out mom. The girl's fingers were tapping out a nervous rhythm on her math book, a habit she'd picked up during their piano lessons. Around lunchtime, while Maya was refilling coffee cups, she overheard two elderly customers reminiscing about dancing in the diner during their dating days. "That piano player could really make the place come alive," one of them said, smiling at the memory. "Remember how he used to take requests? Played everything from classical to rock and roll." The afternoon crept by, and the worry in the air grew thicker. The cook had prepared special dishes, old favorites from the original menu. The tables were set with the fancy tablecloths saved for special occasions. Everything was ready except for the music. Maya was clearing tables when she heard Lily's quiet voice behind her. "Mom," she said, tugging at her mother's sleeve. "I know someone who can play." The owner looked down at her daughter, exhausted from hours of trying to find a last-minute replacement. "Who, honey?" Lily pointed straight at Maya, who nearly dropped the plates she was carrying. "She's amazing, Mom. She's been teaching me in the basement. She can play anything." The diner fell silent. Maya felt every eye turned toward her. The regulars who'd been hearing muffled music for months, Mr. G with his knowing smile, the other waitresses who'd covered for her during lesson times. Her secret was out. "Is this true?" the owner asked, hope creeping into her voice. "You can play." Before Maya could answer, Lily had grabbed her hand and was pulling her toward the basement. Come on, I'll show you. The small crowd of customers followed, curiosity winning over politeness. As Lily threw open the basement door, Maya saw her world of private music about to become very public. The old piano sat in its corner, surrounded by Lily's colorful drawings and their shared sheet music. Mr. G stepped forward, pulling a folded piece of paper from his pocket. It was the same music he'd left with his tip that morning. "I think this would be perfect for tonight," he said softly. Maya sat down at the piano, her hands shaking slightly as they found their place on the familiar keys. She took a deep breath, thinking of all the quiet moments in this basement, all the joy she'd found in sharing music with Lily. Then she began to play. The melody started gentle, like rain on the diner's windows, then grew stronger. It was a piece about family and friendship, about finding courage in unexpected places. She wove in fragments of classic diner tunes, bits of the songs she'd composed while serving coffee, even the simple duets she'd practiced with Lily. When the last note faded, the basement was silent for a moment. Then Lily started clapping, and everyone joined in. The owner wiped tears from her eyes and smiled. "I think we just found our musician for tonight." The weeks following the anniversary celebration brought changes to Pete's Diner that nobody had expected. The old piano was carefully restored and moved upstairs, taking its rightful place by the front window again. The scratches and worn spots weren't completely fixed. They were part of its history, after all. Just like the diner itself, it had stories to tell. Maya still wore her waitress uniform, but now an upright piano shared space with the coffee pots and plates. During quiet moments between orders, she'd sit down and play, filling the diner with gentle melodies that made even the rushed morning crowds slow down and smile. The music became part of the menu, as essential as fresh coffee and warm toast. The regular customers adapted to the change naturally, as if music had always been part of their diner routine. The elderly couple who came in for their morning coffee would request old love songs. The busy office workers started arriving a few minutes earlier to hear the peaceful morning tunes. Even the grumpy truck driver, who only ate at midnight, would pause by the piano, listening to the soft notes that made the late hours less lonely. Word spread about the diner's musical waitress. A reporter from the local paper came by to write a story, taking pictures of Maya playing while wearing her apron. The article caught the attention of the community center director, who showed up one morning with an interesting proposal. "We've been looking for someone to teach piano to kids who can't afford regular lessons," she explained over a cup of coffee. "Someone who can make music feel accessible and fun." She glanced meaningfully at Lily, who was proudly showing another child how to play a simple tune during her break. Maya looked around the diner. At Mr. G grading papers in his regular booth, at the owner beaming with pride as she served plates of eggs, at the walls now lined with both old photos and new memories. Teaching at the community center wouldn't mean leaving the diner. Instead, it meant bringing the magic she'd found here to more people who needed it. The basement piano room became a practice space for Maya's new students. Kids would come after school, filling the once quiet space with scales and laughter. She taught them the same way she taught Lily, finding music in everyday sounds, turning practice into play, making each lesson feel like an adventure rather than a chore. Some evenings, after the dinner rush, Maya would give informal concerts. Nothing fancy, just simple songs that told stories about life in the diner. She composed pieces about dawn light through windows, about friendship over coffee cups, about dreams hidden in unexpected places. The music drew people together, turning customers into friends and the diner into a true community. Lily continued her lessons, now proudly sharing the piano bench with other students. She'd tell them stories about the secret basement practices, about learning to hear music in rain and traffic and conversation. Sometimes, she and Maya would play duets during busy Sunday brunches, their fingers dancing across the keys while plates of pancakes and eggs were served around them. The tip jar on the piano filled with more than just money. There were notes requesting songs, thank you cards from listeners, and drawings from kids inspired to start playing. Mr. G still left sheet music every Tuesday, but now his musical suggestions were for both Maya and her growing group of students. One year after the anniversary celebration, the owner hung a new sign in the window: Pete's Diner, where food and music feed the soul. The words captured what the place had become: not just a restaurant, but a space where ordinary moments turned into something magical, where a simple waitress's hidden gift had transformed an entire community. Maya still served coffee and cleared tables, but now she did it with music flowing freely from her heart. She discovered that sometimes the best melodies aren't played in grand concert halls, but in small diners where life's real symphonies unfold over plates of comfort food and cups of coffee, one note at a time.